Surf's up, guys, it's Mauisnake here doing another Pick'ems video with Pickstop. We're going to be going over the ESL Pro League Season 17 playoffs. You have to get your predictions in rather quickly. There's 17 hours left at the time that I am recording this video. And why should you trust me? Well, look at what happened last time. At the Katowice event, I came in second place on the planet. Of all the people that played on Pickstop, I came in second place. Jeff QED just barely beat me, 106 points to 103 points. Good for Jeff QED. I gave him a follow on Twitter after that because, honestly, if you're that smart, you deserve a follow. That's just what it is. So, remember to join my league if you so choose. Go to the popular leagues. You'll see that I am the most popular league right now on the website. And also joining the fray is Scrawny, so you could join his league too. He's got the House of Scrawn going on right here. Also, be sure to just honestly check out his YouTube channel. He's been doing a lot of great stuff in terms of HLTV fantasy, and he's starting to do some Pickstop videos too. So give him a follow, give him a sub, and be sure to subscribe to me if you haven't. And so let's just get into this. ESL Pro League Season 17. I was working the group stage already. I am going to be watching this from the comfort of my home, and we're going to look at game number one. Some of these are very simple. I'm going to be going through those quickly so we can give a little bit more time to the ones that deserve a little bit more. So Navi 00 Nation, this is just a 2-0. The stomps are just going to be like this. G2 over Movistar, 2-0. Liquid over Pain, that's also going to be a 2-0 for me. Hardest game to predict of the opening round is Furia Fnatic. No questions about that. Bookmakers actually have this as a very slight Fnatic favorite, and I think that in terms of team play, I have to agree. I think Fnatic has overall looked like the better roster, but I think that where Furia is got the edge is that they have a couple people who I think are just have the potential to be the best player in the server. Because obviously there's K-Serato, but I also just think Yuri could be the best player in the server too. Fnatic, on the other hand, I think it's kind of a revolving door of who's going to be the best. I think Mezzi has been obviously a really solid player for them. I think Roy is the best overall as an individual, and that's not to take anything away from Mezzi because he's taking on the IGL duties. But then I just think about the rest of the roster, and Fasher did a little bit better here at Pro League, so I think that maybe he's having a slight bounce back, but I'm not really too sold on whether I love him still on this team. Nico Dawes, also just a guy that, honestly, if you watch his POVs, you realize he plays a lot of standard angles, and that's why he just gets flashed off a lot of the time. And I started realizing, like, he's just going through the motions a lot of time without really innovating. Or if you're not innovating, you need to be able to, like, flick your mouse so fast that you can dodge flashes better, and he doesn't really do that either. So that's kind of, I think, why actually we have seen a drop in efficiency from Nico Dawes ever since he started playing on the bigger stages. And so it's really going to be up to him to try to do better. That being said, I don't know if Furia is necessarily the team that can punish him. I don't really think of Furia as a roster that's going to get it really upset an opera like Nico Dawes. And so I kind of, it's really, really difficult. Like, this is going to be a 3-mapper for me just by the virtue of how close these teams are. And I think I'm actually going to be going with Furia. I'm going to be going with Fury here. This feels like an any given day sort of situation, and I don't necessarily... I see a world where Fnatic could have easily won this too. Like, that's all I'm saying. This is a really close matchup, but I just think that Fury have a couple more weapons that should be effective, and I also, in some ways, don't really think that either team is going to be, like, that good at anti-stratting each other. I have never really seen either of these teams play a matchup, and I'm like, oh, yeah, they really countered them. So even though Furia's style, some people say, is predictable, I don't know if really Fnatic have the veteran savvy in order to actually take advantage completely of that, but could be wrong. You know, there's a lot of time that's been between the playoffs and the group stage, so there's a lot of things that both of these teams could have worked on. Round of 12, Outsiders versus Navi. This one, actually, I think Outsiders also has better overall team form at present, and I think that if we kind of think about where Navi has been and what they need to work on, they obviously didn't look very good in Group D. They lost to Forza, but I think they looked pretty good after that. I don't think there was too much issue I would have taken with the rest of their performance, but I just think that also Perfecto didn't really deliver as an individual, even though he was kind of holding up his end very well for this team. Simple has been playing quite well, but I think of Outsiders right now, and I think that they just had so much time to work on so much stuff, and I think Navi, on the other hand, they've shown before that if they're just kind of thrust into a matchup, it's kind of difficult for them to actually really prep to the best of their ability, because Blade really likes having time, and I think James has had that time. And I now at this point, given what Outsiders have done at the most recent major and how they've looked like a consistent force at the past Katowice also, I'm actually going to go with Outsiders in this one, but just barely. And it's kind of one of those things where Navi is a team that ramps up, so I could just be totally wrong with this, but it's kind of more of a gut feeling that Jame has worked on anything. And basically what I'm saying here is that I'm putting my faith into James' system and the calling that he's going to bring, and I'm going to also assume that Chiron brings even more to the table, because Flit and Fame actually could be the best. They can be on any given day the best two riflers in this series. This is so stacked with firepower in this matchup that I think this is probably the best round of 12 match to watch. So try not to miss it. That's all I'm going to say. I think it's going to be really, really interesting. FaZe Furia, this is also going to be a pretty simple one for me. I'm just going to give FaZe Clan this one 2-0. They lost to Vitality in a really disappointing and embarrassing fashion on Anubis, but I don't really think that's anything that FaZe need to sweat over. I also think that Furia, this could easily be Fnatic, and kind of by the virtue of just kind of playing pick'ems, you should just pick the team that you think should win regardless. And there's also, just for the fact of the matter, I mean, like, there's just no way Furia's just going to beat FaZe. And also, I just don't think Fnatic would beat FaZe either. So I'd have FaZe 2-0 against either of those rosters, actually. Liquid Mouse is a little bit interesting. I think that if you kind of looked at what Liquid did at the beginning of the group stage, you would have probably given this to Mouse. But Liquid are just kind of this team now that's very convincingly ramping up into every tournament they play. And so I'm giving Liquid 2-1 on this one, because I just think that they've gotten a lot better. And what they showed in the last couple matches they played was the Liquid we're used to. And I think that's going to be good enough for them. I think Mouse also are a team that you shouldn't be sleeping on too. And if I looked at all of these round of 12 matchups, I think the closest ones are Outsiders Navi and Mao's Liquid. I think the other ones are pretty convincing and obvious, and I'm just going to give G2 the 2-0 right there also. Don't think ENCE has really any chance there. Just for like a really brief word on ENCE, I think that Nerds actually has looked like a really solid addition here. He's like pressure lurking a little bit more. He's making some more action happen. And I think mechanically speaking, I've already seen more from Nerds to be excited about for this team. I think ENCE actually are finally putting it back together. I think that with Valde, they were just a little bit underpowered in terms of just firepower. But now Nerds kind of alleviates that problem. But still, it's just not going to be enough to handle G2. G2 is just way too good as an overall team. So quarterfinal matchups here. We've got Heroic versus Outsiders. This one is also kind of hard to read, but I think Heroic are playing the best overall team CS in the world right now. And so I'm actually going to give Heroic 2-0 or 2-1. I think this is one of those decisions that can kind of make or break. Just those little extra points to squeak out. And I don't want to take Outsiders too lightly, but I also think that Heroic are just going to cover them. And the thing is that Heroic are going to be able to watch what Outsiders do in the round of 12 to try to strengthen their playbook and their anti-stratting against Outsiders. And so that's why I am giving this one to Heroic. Forza versus FaZe. I think Forza is actually really legit, and I'm actually going to give them a map here, but I'm definitely not going to be giving them the series win. So I'm giving FaZe Clan this 2-1. And I think that I talked to Jerry actually at the kind of after party for the groups, and he just said there's just been this complete mental shift with this team. Like, they all started putting in so much more work. But I think that Fours right now, they're going to be a group stage warrior team for the near future. I expect that they will also be qualifying for the major. I think that they can even probably make it to the legend stage of the major, but I don't think that in a playoff game with the team being this young that they're going to show what they did in the group stage right now, because it's just kind of a different beast. In playoff situations, there's just a little bit more pressure, and when you're in the server against FaZe, I almost would say that if Fours played any team that weren't G2 or FaZe or Heroic, I think they could have won. I think they could literally have beaten Outsider, C9, Liquid, and Vitality. So a little bit unlucky on the draw, and it's just kind of one of those weird experience things, and it's kind of hard to explain that also, because it's just kind of like when you're Forza and you play Liquid, even though Liquid is technically higher ranked than FaZe, it's just one of those things where people in Europe just seem to respect like the FaZe players so much so that they kind of just piss themselves a little bit when they play against them. And I think FaZe is also pretty hungry right now for the Grand Slam, even though they're not really letting that on like it's a big thing, but it's definitely in the back of their minds. And I think that pressure should motivate them to find the series victory. Cloud9 versus Liquid. This is just one that I'm working off of this the series history here, and so consistently Liquid have been beating Cloud9 that I'm gonna keep that up. I'm gonna just continue with that train of thought. And I think that this might be a little bit surprising because Cloud9 did so well in the group stage that it really does feel like, in another weird way, this is like the one opponent I'm most worried about for Cloud9. I think if Cloud9 played FaZe, they would beat them. If they played Outsiders, they might beat them. If they played Heroic, I think they could beat them. If they played Fours, it's kind of 50-50. It's a little weird. It's a little weird matchup right there. If they play Vitality, yeah, I think they'd probably beat them too. I think Cloud9 would beat Vitality, but G2 they'd probably lose. So Cloud9, to me, almost in a power rankings, if I were to commit to one right now, they'd be top 4 in this tournament. But Liquid is just the one matchup that just so consistently has given them problems that I am going to be going with Liquid here. And so Vitality versus G2, I would have given Vitality a chance here if they had Jax, but I think dupreeh is still the weakest player on this team. So they're getting a guy who dominated the group stage out, and they're getting in the player that I think was pretty weak already, and he just devoted a lot of time to taking care of his newborn kid. Congrats to him for having a kid. But that doesn't actually lead to competitive success, in my opinion. And then we got the final 4. Heroic versus FaZe. Tough one. Really, really, really tough also, because I really want to give this one to Heroic for just overall form. But this is where pick'ems just get weird. In this deep in a tournament, you kind of just have to go with gut feeling a little bit. And it's been so long since FaZe has shown us anything to be too excited about. And I think for some reason they're just gonna bring it here. It's just, there's not really any certainty in that claim. It's just a feeling, and I'd say that the bookmaker favorite for that match probably should be Heroic, but I just think that FaZe is gonna pull off what is now the upset, even though you wouldn't have obviously said that 5+ months ago, maybe 6+ months ago. So yeah, I'm giving FaZe 2-1 on this. I think it's going to be really close. I think map 3 is probably going to be like overtime type of deal. And I think for some reason Heroic is just not going to pull through on that one. I also think that this one is a weird matchup where Liquid G2, I think on paper, also should be a very strange... Like, this should be very straightforward. This should just be G2 winning. And there's very even few win conditions for Liquid in this game. But for some reason, I also just think there's like a weird chance that Liquid at least get... I'm not going to say they're going to win. I'll just give that disclaimer. I don't think Liquid are going to win. I can't put my reputation on that. But I think they're going to get a map. I think G2 are going to lose a map to Liquid. And I think it's going to get a little bit dicey also here. And so for the grand final, FaZe versus G2, the team that's starting to build their Grand Slam resume and the other that's trying to close it out. And I'm just going to give G2 this 3-2. I think it's going to be actually an incredible series. I think this is going to be probably one of the best Pro League grand finals. Actually, you know what? The Vitality Liquid one was really good last season. So maybe it's not going to be like the best in a while because the last one was good, but I think it's going to be it's going to be an all-timer. It's going to be an all-timer. We're going to get the FaZe G2 matchup, and G2, they're going to take it. They're going to continue running with their current form because they're just the best team in the world. And until anyone shows me otherwise, I think G2 are actually the clear favorites for this entire thing. I don't think there's really any way that you could sell me on any other team otherwise. But I think that they're not invulnerable. I think these teams in Liquid and FaZe will draw blood against G2, but I do have G2 getting this one. Be sure to submit, guys. That's my pick'ems. Appreciate all of y'all. A lot of stuff coming up for me. But be sure to also trash talk Scrawny in his mentions, in his comments, because I think he had Vitality over G2, and it's just like, what are you doing, Scrawn? What are you doing, Scrawn dog? Come on. What you doing?